Tupolev Tu-144. The Tupolev Tu-144 was the Soviet Union's answer to Concorde and the first supersonic passenger aircraft in history to fly, completing its maiden flight on December 31, 1968. Despite that milestone, the program was beset by technical problems throughout. A prototype crashed at the Paris Air Show in June 1973, killing 6 crew and 8 people on the ground. The production aircraft that entered Aeroflot service in 1977 was substantially redesigned with canard foreplanes and new engines, but remained noisy, thirsty, and unreliable. Cabin noise was so severe passengers had to pass written notes to communicate. The type operated just 55 revenue passenger flights before being grounded in 1978 following a second fatal crash, and was retired entirely in 1983. Its failure was the result of a program driven by political prestige rather than engineering readiness, forcing an aircraft into service before its fundamental problems had been solved. Convair 880 and 990. The Convair 880 and its stretched successor, the 990 Coronado, were American narrow-body jets developed in the late 1950s to compete with the Boeing 707 and Douglas DC-8. The 880 first flew in 1959 and was designed to be the fastest commercial jet in the world, cruising at 615 miles per hour, a distinction airlines quickly realized they did not need and were not willing to pay a premium for. Its narrow fuselage accommodated only 4 seats across, one fewer than its competitors, reducing revenue per flight and making profitability difficult to achieve. The 990 introduced distinctive anti-shock bodies on the wing trailing edges to reduce wave drag at high speeds, but the aircraft remained economically marginal. Only 65 Convair 880s and 37 Convair 990s were delivered in total. Convair lost approximately $425 million across both programs, a sum that contributed directly to the end of its commercial aircraft activity. De Havilland Comet. The de Havilland Comet was the world's first commercial jet airliner, entering service with BOAC in May 1952 and immediately transforming passenger aviation with speed and smoothness that piston airliners could not match. Within 2 years, the program was in crisis. 3 Comet 1 aircraft suffered explosive decompression in early 1954, with wreckage recovered from the Mediterranean providing the first evidence of structural failure. An investigation, including pressure cycling of a complete fuselage submerged in a water tank at Farnborough, revealed that the Comet's square windows concentrated stress at their corners under repeated pressurization cycles, producing fatigue cracks that propagated until the fuselage ruptured. By the time de Havilland had redesigned the aircraft as the Comet 4 with oval windows and thicker skin, Boeing had introduced the 707 and Douglas the DC-8, both benefiting directly from the Comet's lessons. The Comet 4 entered service in 1958 but could never recover its commercial standing, and production ended with only 114 aircraft built across all variants.
Boeing 2707. The Boeing 2707 was the United States government's attempt to develop an American supersonic transport that would outperform Concorde in both speed and capacity. In 1966, Boeing won a competition against Lockheed for the SST contract, proposing an aircraft capable of carrying 300 passengers at Mach 2.7. The original variable sweep wing design proved impossibly heavy, and a redesigned fixed delta wing still accumulated weight and cost overruns. Growing environmental opposition, centered on sonic boom damage and concern about ozone layer depletion from high-altitude emissions, combined with the program's escalating costs to erode political support. In March 1971, the U.S. Senate voted to end federal funding. Boeing had spent $1 billion of government money without producing a flyable prototype. The 2707 was canceled before a single aircraft was completed, leaving Concorde as the only Western supersonic transport ever to enter service. McDonnell Douglas MD-12. The McDonnell Douglas MD-12 was a proposed double-deck wide-body airliner developed in the late 1980s as the company's answer to what the market anticipated would be growing demand for very high-capacity aircraft on trunk routes. The aircraft was designed to carry between 400 and 600 passengers across 4 engines and 2 full passenger decks, directly competing with a potential stretched Boeing 747 and the aircraft that would eventually become the Airbus A380.
McDonnell Douglas invested heavily in the MD-12 design and began discussions with potential airline customers, but the company's financial position had deteriorated significantly by the early 1990s following costly development programs and declining market share. Unable to fund both the MD-12 development and ongoing MD-11 production simultaneously, McDonnell Douglas shelved the program in 1992 without building a prototype. The company subsequently merged with Boeing in 1997, ending its independent commercial aircraft development program entirely. The void the MD-12 was meant to fill was eventually occupied by the Airbus A380.
Airbus A380. The Airbus A380 was not a failure of engineering, but of market judgment. Airbus committed to the double-deck Super Jumbo in 2000, investing approximately $25 billion on the premise that aviation growth would concentrate traffic through mega-hub airports too congested to absorb more frequent but smaller aircraft. Boeing disagreed, betting on the 787 and the preference for point-to-point services on efficient twin-engine jets. History sided with Boeing. Airlines found the A380's enormous seat count required consistently high load factors achievable only on a handful of the world's busiest routes, and the aircraft was commercially vulnerable during economic downturns when high-yield passengers reduced spending. Emirates was the program's only genuinely committed long-term operator, eventually flying over 100 aircraft. Airbus ended production in 2021 after 254 deliveries, less than a third of the 750 originally projected. The A380 flew superbly and its passengers loved it, but it could not find enough work to justify its existence. Bombardier C Series. The Bombardier C Series was a Canadian narrow-body jet program launched in 2008 that represented the most technically ambitious commercial aircraft in Bombardier's history and ultimately the one that exceeded the company's financial capacity to complete. The CS-100 and CS-300 variants featured Pratt & Whitney PW1500G geared turbofan engines, extensive composites, and advanced avionics that delivered genuine fuel efficiency advantages over aging 737 and A320 families. Development ran years behind schedule and billions over budget. When Delta Airlines ordered 75 CS-100 aircraft in 2016, Boeing filed a trade complaint seeking import duties of 300%, a move that threatened to close the aircraft's most important market. Airbus responded by acquiring a 50.01% stake in the program for $1 in 2018, rebranding the aircraft as the A220. It is today widely regarded as one of the finest single-aisle aircraft ever built. Bombardier received nothing from its subsequent success, having transferred its remaining stake to the Quebec government in 2020.
Ilyushin Il-86. The Ilyushin Il-86 was the Soviet Union's first wide-body passenger jet, making its maiden flight on December 22, 1976, and entering Aeroflot service in 1980. Designed to carry up to 350 passengers on 4 Kuznetsov NK-86 turbofan engines, it featured a distinctive lower-deck boarding system where passengers entered at ground level, stowed their own luggage in underbelly holds, and climbed internal stairs to the cabin, intended to speed up turnarounds at Soviet airports with limited ground handling. Its fundamental problem was catastrophic fuel consumption. The NK-86 engines gave the IL-86 a maximum range of only around 3,600 kilometers, making it unsuitable for international routes. Western aviation authorities also declined to certify it, permanently confining it to Soviet domestic operations. A total of 106 were built before production ended in 1997, and all were retired by the early 2010s without finding a single customer outside the former Soviet Union.